talk about some crawfishing with Dad occasion, how we used to do it. Welcome back to Bent on the Bayou. All right. What you say, Daddy Cajun?
Man, hello.
My God.
Man, it's good. Oh, it's all good in the woods where I'm from. Oh, we should have. C'est tout bon.
Dad, what you think of my earrings right here? What that is, Dad?
That's crawfish.
And how you say that in French?
South Louisiana crawfish. Ça, c'est des écrevisses.
Ça c'est des
Écrevisses.
écrevisses.
Made our money with that. Paid the bills.
All right. So with that being said, y'all, I want to bring out this first picture. Who that is?
Man, who it look like?
Who that is? God Bradley.
That's me.
Man, child, why you bears just... Man, how come that's you?
Man, yeah. That's years ago.
Oh,
You
that...
see that?
Oh, well, what you did? Spray painted your beard?
Man, yeah.
He spray painted his beard. A little bit. I wish I had the date on this because... Oh, it does have the date. Oh, it does have the date. Oh, it is written. Yo, I started laminating some of these pictures so I can have them to keep. Daddy, this picture got 6/2/89. I was 5.
Golly.
God, I was 5 years old.
30-something years ago.
5 years old in this picture. Anyway,
35 years ago.
so 2 of our biggest money makers, y'all. Again, with that occasion, we just telling a little bit how we made money. Living off the land as Cajuns, because while some people think Cajun is just spice, or people look at me and see my gaudy earrings, you know, the little glitter earrings, or my nails done, they will tell me I'm not a Bayou girl, whatever the case is. But I'm here to share and show it all, right? So my first picture I want to share with y'all, of course, I just showed y'all Bradley. Daddy, when we would crawfish, and what was the other biggest money maker?
Alligator hunting.
Alligator. Alligator was more my favorite than crawfish. All day. All right. So tell me about this picture there. Where you would crawfish at?
Out of Bell River. In the spill, it was called a spillway.
In the spillway.
Yep.
Now,
Sometimes 300, 350 traps we'd run. We'd catch out 40, 45 sacks of crawfish, sometimes 50. But my boat couldn't hold no more because my boat wasn't that big. But
I
we
got a
made a
picture.
living.
I got a picture for that. But when you saw crawfish like this, how big was this trap there?
Those traps was 52 inches round.
Okay, but when people
and 4 feet tall.
and what were your measurements of each trap? I know you had some that were like 4 feet.
4 feet tall, yes.
But they would have some with extensions and some would be short because of the sloughs. What were they?
There was 36 inches. There was 3 feet long.
3 feet. But whenever the water got deep, didn't you have to make them longer?
We had to add an extension about a foot on them, where the water wouldn't get over them to smother the crawfish, to save the crawfish, and we still made our living.
And what you mean smother the crawfish?
They'd go underwater before we extend the traps, so that they could come on top and get air. That's why we extended the trap, made it a little bit longer.
Because them traps were looking like this. Slab
If
full.
they was under the water, the crawfish would die.
So sometime they would have to extend it, just what he just said.
Yeah.
Now what's some of the stuff you'd put in your trap for bait?
We'd get some shad, cut shad, or sometimes mullets. Yeah.
We would call them dog food. What was that?
Some kind of round pellet, about this round and maybe 3 inches long.
Because I still don't know. Is there another word for that? Because I just still call them dog food, me.
It was just a pellet that would use. I don't know what.
Now, when he said, oh, his boat would hold, I found it.
Nah, that's crawfish. Dans la faire toi.
So about how many sacks that was right there, Dad?
At about 32 to 35 maybe, because the bottom had a lot in it also.
How long was this boat?
It was 18 feet long.
This boat was 18 feet long. Why these skiffs were made like they were made, these aluminum skiffs? Why you had a boat made like this?
Why? Because sometimes when the water was low, you had the big stumps. You had what they call a cypress knee. Sometimes it was that high.
Now, you know we don't call it no cypress knee, Bradley. What you call that?
It was called a busquillo.
A
And to
busquillo.
go over it, you had to kind of roll the boat a little bit over this way. It would go where it wouldn't buzz the bottom. And the point it was to go through the lilies. It's called water lilies. You'd go through it, the lilies would just fold over. But with a flat bottom boat in the front, you'd go over it. By the time you get to the motor, you would stay stuck. But that's Cajun for you. We made a living.
So,
We're still here. Man,
that's
we-
right. Now, I have a picture somewhere about when y'all put me in not a live well, but it was a part of a boat. I'll look for it while we're talking about it, but what, y'all, even when I was little, I was slinging sacks of crawfish. How much a sack of crawfish, depending, like if you got a full sack, how much about the pounds? 40, 42?
40, 42, 43 pounds, yes.
A little girl. The boat, if the boat, let me find something, was like this. My daddy be in the back by the motor, and what they had between us there. When you were in the back, when you pull up the trap,
The trough?
the trough, there was a trough in between me and my daddy, to where he would pull up in the boat, pick up the trap, dump the trap in, tell him from there.
From there, I dump it in. They had a hole in the middle of it. Well, not in the middle, on the end, with a sack underneath, with some little pegs holding it. We dump it into the sack was full. Once it was full, we'd take it out of there, tie it. I'd hand it to her, of course. Then she'd put it to the front, and I put another empty sack underneath, and we keep going.
Now
That's how we made our living.
I was a little girl slinging crawfish sacks, y'all. Literally.
Oh,
He would wrap them up, and when you had to roll to do this. Because at one point he had a whole lot of traps out. So we would start at what, 5 in the morning?
Sometimes 5 in the morning, sometimes we go earlier. Depends how hot it was.
And he had me slinging crawfish sacks. Let's see. And a few times, the busquillo he's talking about, where the boat would roll on it and not bust it. If he hit a busquillo, I went flying in the bait box, because daddy would be by the motor. There would be the trough for him to empty the crawfish. The point of the trough, while he's emptying, I would be ready with the bait. I'd put the bait in while he's closing the trap to put it back in the water. I'd be taking out the dead crawfish, the old bait, slinging it out, right? So we had a good little thing going, but if he hit something, I was in the bait box, because behind me was where my old fish was. And on the way to the traps, I used to have to cut them fish in half. So I had a box bait of fish, and plenty of times I ended up in that damn box bait. Now, Daddy, tell them what's some of the things you done found up in them crawfish traps, because it's so different from crawfish ponds.
Yep.
So different from crawfish ponds, okay? Completely different.
She know what to do now. I dump that trap in the trough. Sometimes they have some little dead snakes. Sometimes they have some little live ones. Oh, we got some little perch that would jump around in there. She had to pick them up and throw them back overboard. And few leaves from the trees that fell years ago in there that they had pulled in and stuff like that. But we couldn't stop. We had to keep going to make our money.
Now, you stayed prepared in your boat with a lot of different stuff. What was some of the worst things to encounter while you were crawfishing?
Like what you,
Like if there was a snake. If it was dead, it was one thing, you could just pull it out, correct? Why would the snake be trying to go in your trap?
if they had a live perch in there, it tried to get to that perch, and it couldn't come out. It'd go in easy because it had a funnel with that big around from the start, and at the end, inside the trap, is about that big around. But once she'd get in there, she couldn't find that little hole to come back out, and it was staying there. But after, like I say, after that perch,
Now,
Yeah.
what about the gap?
the wasp, oh, they had some wasp nests. We had to watch out.
So that's what I mean, some of your worst encounters. What's the things you hated and you had to watch for when you went crawfishing?
When you're putting out traps, you gotta watch. You gotta have a can of hornet spray. We call them gaps, wasps. You have to spray that nest. After you spray it, you get your cane knife, cut that branch off. But most of the time, you would cut branches for your way in there, so you can get through your trap. Then after that, you'll be all right. Making that trail was kind of rough now, a little rough but dangerous, with the snakes and the gaps.
What else? What else we had to encounter a couple of times? The spiders.
Got a few spiders also.
The spiders, child. But you know what was? This is my daddy. My daddy was a tough man. Okay, when he spoke, you better understand what he mean. So and if not, he taught you a lesson. But there was when he meant something, he meant it. Okay, like if we could not, when we took off, put our hands outside the boat. Why? Because again, these are little aluminum skiffs. They rub against that tree, so that'll took all this off. But most of the time, when somebody say duck, your instinct is to turn around and look to see what you ducking for, right? B. When Bradley say duck, that mean you duck. You don't turn around.
Look around. No, you duck.
You don't look around and see what's coming. Tell him why, Dad, because boy, he would
Because
duck.
that limb is coming to you sometime.
That limb will knock the shit out you, because when you going through them woods and you got to get in there with that little skiff, and they come, and if it hits one tree and knocks something else out the way, and that limb come flying, you getting it. You getting it.
Yep. That's why we call it down the bayou. Oh, we shy.
So let me show y'all.
It's pure Cajuns. That's what it is.
So let me show you what I was talking about. Okay.
That's another picture.
See that trough? My daddy would be standing in the back, okay, handling the motor. Then the trough in front of us, and then I would be in front that trough, okay? Little bitty old girl slinging them heavy crawfish sacks, and look, he had a certain way to do it. Don't test Bradley, child. You better had put them right, or your ass was grass.
It had
And
to
this
be
is
done
what-
right, yes.
And this is why. Look,
Stack them together.
you had to stack them right and make the way to the boat, you know. Because, look, this Tom right here, Dad, I don't even think, he had to go real slow to come in with that. Because if not, his boat was gone. It was taking on water, wasn't it?
Yeah.
His boat was taking on water, so he couldn't go fast. That's crazy, huh?
Now that's a true one.
That's a true one, huh?
Yep.
So, but yeah, back to the gap, to the snakes and all that. How long will we stay out there for that?
It depends how many traps we run. Sometimes by the time we get to the first trap in the morning, about 4 or 5 o'clock, we run to about 8, take a break, eat, run to about 11 or 12, sometimes 1 o'clock.
And I remember some days where it was
And
past.
that's not stopping. That's running traps.
I remember some days way past lunchtime. Oh,
Sometimes it was 3 o'clock.
What was some necessities? And I'm gonna make this a joking part because so many people laugh about when they say, "Does a bear shit in woods?" I can say, "Can a woman shit in woods?" What was a necessity to have in that boat during the day? If we had to go to the bathroom.
Well, for men it was easy. Easy for a man. But they had to get on the side of the boat. Sometimes it was a 5-gallon bucket, but most of the time they'd
Right on the
sit on the side of the boat.
Right on the side, y'all.
Yep.
Uh, the alligators, like just being in a swamp, period, you're going to see it all. But yeah, we had to bring the toilet paper, y'all, because not like we could stop anywhere. So yeah, you could say, instead of does a bear shit in woods, you could say, man, does Brandy shit in woods? I do. I had no choice. So some of these women that I see online, they're like, oh my God, I could never. And I just think to myself, oh, they'd have never made it. So let's finish off the crawfishing thing. The crawfishing thing, once we would finish all the traps, bait them, put them back, without saying any company names, okay, we were just going to say the dock.
Fish dock.
We would go to the dock, and what would happen?
That's where we would unload them from the boat, put one by one sack at a time on the scale, weigh them, put them down, get another sack, the same thing over and over. That's how we sell our crawfish.
So
That's how much pounds we would come out with.
Daddy would, his helper would be in the boat. He'd be outside the boat and next to the scale. We'd hand him a sack. He would put it on the scale. They would weigh it, whatever, and that's how, and they would write it down. Now it's crazy because did you or did you not have to pay your own taxes on crawfish?
Sure did.
So you had to keep track of all that.
Save all my receipts. Yep, at the end of the year, I'd go get them fixed and pay taxes on them.
So that's why when I tell y'all it wasn't a check paying job, that's what I mean. So when he did make money, of course, the government started to take theirs. So we did have to pay taxes. Now, after we left the dock, sometime,
The fish dock she's talking about.
Daddy, how you'd pay me?
It would all depend. All depend.
Sometime it would range between 50 cents a sack to $2 a sack, depending on how good the crawfish was, what I got paid. But on some days, what else did I get? What money? Where we stopped at? When it was hot.
It would depend.
You remember the little place we'd stop at?
To get a little snowball.
I got a snowball, y'all. Because let me tell you what. It was hot. Some days, child, crawfishing and all that heat and
All that moss hanging.
We stayed with lice.
Sometimes when I'd say duck, she had to duck. She couldn't say for what or look, or turn around and see what she's ducking for. When I'd say duck, she had to duck because it was there.
It was there.
Because
And
the boat was steady moving from trap to trap.
Yes.
All week.
When you fish like that boat got to steady going. You can't wait. You can't hold up. You got to go. That was the job.
From trap to trap, yep.
It was always running. You know what I mean?